blacking out. You, oh, tenderness is out the window. What you do to me when the cold bites blue is straight cool. Oh, it has to be you leaving writings on the wall. Promise me roses and a hungry haze, but now there's only madness. Got me feeling dusty. Got me feeling dusty. I can't even whisper and it's hard to see. Don't take my hand and wake me. Tell me it's a dream, the worst kind you've ever dreamed. Don't wanna lay another night here. Don't wanna walk another mile. I just can't. But please don't make me do it. I got too much to lose. Too much to lose, too much to lose. Now lay me in the wilderness to dry up bits of your sweet caress. I can't wait no more. Willow trees have died and the last horn lark will fly. Got me feeling dusty, got me feeling dusty. Please tell me it's a dream, worst kind you've ever dreamed. I don't wanna lay another night. Don't wanna walk another mile. I just can't. Oh, please don't make me do it. 'Cause I got too much to lose. I got too much to lose.
I have cancer.
Hi, Dad, it's Renee. I'm just not feeling that great about this trip that you want to take all alone.
Are you from around here?
Oh, I used to be.
Some snacks for later.
You sure you're gonna be alright out there?
I'm gonna be fine.
Dad, I'm just concerned about your health.
I'm not sure my health is your business.
Get off! Your dog was gonna rip my dog's throat out.
You do these one-handed?
I did.
You a doctor or something?
I was. I've got a year if I don't take treatment.
You don't know what's gonna happen.
But I do. Bed sores, bone fractures, dehydration, the sensation of being strangled at the end, and a final drip of morphine. That's what's gonna happen. I know exactly what's gonna happen. If I let it stop.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Interview Friday Lunch Therapy. All right, yeah. We are here today. We're going to be talking with S.J. Chiro. I have behind me the beautiful woman sitting on the pool and the rain coming down. I hope that we had this on the show earlier, and it's kind of a nice soothing thing. Yeah, that was the trailer. That was the trailer for East of the Mountains. And today we're lucky enough to have the director of that movie. So let's get into this. Lunch Therapy Interview Friday with S.J. Chiro. I'm gonna get myself a modem. 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 Okay, we're in the woods. We're going to be in the woods a little bit today. This is Lunch Therapy. If you've never seen Lunch Therapy always begins with 3 breaths. Today we've got the background is nomadic ambiance. If you ever are feeling like you need to chill out, go to nomadic ambiance on YouTube, and it's a blast. You can hang out in nature. This guy films nature and the sounds of nature, and that's always a good thing. Jay Patterson is here. Hey, great to see you. Yeah. Oh, this is the trailer. So the trailer was from East of the Mountains, and Guignol says that maybe that's what he's going to do. But without the shotgun, he's going to go to India and have his retirement, I guess. I don't know. I guess that's what he's saying. Hey, Chuck Goldsmith, good to see you. Ahoy. Hopefully no guns in our future retirement. Howard Ronan is here. All right, let's take in a breath. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. Glenn Cooper, so great to see you here. Glad you stopped by. I've got a really good interview for you all today. I hope you enjoy it. We're going to get to it soon. 2 more breaths in through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Vernus is here. Let it go. Wow, we got a really good crowd here today of really intelligent, really talented people. And I think you're going to enjoy this really intelligent, talented person that I've got on here. But first we're going to see a trailer from her other movie. It's called Lane 1974, In Through the Nose, Out Through the Toes, which is another fantastic movie that's available. Let it go. So East of the Mountains just came out last month, at the end of the month. Lane 1974 was out, I think, in 2017. Both are great movies. And let's move on. Here's the trailer from Lane 1974. We're going to go right into the interview.
Lane, what's your dream house? It would have a big backyard. And my mom would be super pretty. She'd brush my hair.
The princess looked to the riverbed in dismay. And there she saw thousands of rocks over which the magical river had once flowed.
Dad, no time back. This always happens with my mom. She just has a hard time getting along with other people.
I told you to keep an eye on the kids.
Calm down, Clarice.
I'm not gonna calm down.
Are you praying, Karen?
Oh, God.
I'm really glad you guys came here. Me too.
You have to understand, sometimes things in life don't happen the way you want them to. Some things we just don't get. Elaine, are you there?
I don't have much time on the phone.
I'm gonna go into the city.
But I thought you hate the city.
I don't have a choice anymore.
Where's Shayla?
She's gonna stay here for a while. Come on.
Elaine?
Yeah?
She won't take.
All right. right, here we are with S.J. Chiro, the director of a recent film called East of the Mountains, and also the director of a feature film called Lane 1974, which is a great film as well. Welcome to the show, S.J. Chiro.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here. I wanted to begin with, I watched the movie Lane 1974, and it's a very personal movie. I wonder, did you grow up in Northern California, or do you have any kind of experience with this?
Extremely, yes.
Really?
I mean, definitely. I did grow up in Northern California, and we shot on two of the communes that I grew up on.
Wow.
So it was really a homecoming. It was definitely an extremely personal film, even though it's based on someone else's memoir.
That's what I wondered about. Yeah. Tell me about that. How did you come to the book, and how did you just identify with the subject matter so much?
Yes, and I was looking for it. Like, yeah. I had always wanted to tell this story, but it was so deep and complex, and just I couldn't quite,
like you're too close to it, maybe?
Yeah, I was just too close to it. My own experience was too diverse and I just couldn't kind of hone it down to a story.
Yeah.
And I happened to have knee surgery. And the day after I got out of knee surgery, I got this phone call from an old college friend who I hadn't seen in 25 years or something, like a long, long time. And she said, "Oh my God, I can't believe I finally found you. I've been looking for you. My friend wrote this book and you have to read it. Like, you will identify with it so much. I know you're going to love it." I ordered it. I read it. It spoke to me so loudly, so clearly. And I knew, like, this is it. This is how I'm going to tell the story. So that was the beginning of it. But that was in 2008. And the film did not come out until 2017. So it was a long road still.
Yeah, but people don't realize sometimes how long it takes to make these independent films.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it really, you have to be very, very, very committed.
You have to find something that you really want to say.
When I hear people going, it'd be fun to make a movie.
Yeah.
I would like to make a movie. Well, what do you want to talk about? Oh, I don't know. It'd just be fun to do it.
It can't be like that at all.
Oh dear.
You have to go past that point a few times where you're just like fed up with it too, and you have to keep going.
You must keep going. I mean, perseverance is essential. And yes, of course, you will just hit so many roadblocks. And I think it's probably true on big budget movies too. You hit personality difficulties or financing,
or even your own roadblocks where you're like, well, maybe the story isn't right maybe people aren't going to want to hear this story, or you know what I mean, like personal things that go on.
Yeah, you definitely have to get over that. I mean, really, you're too far in, and you've already dragged along. By the time you start thinking that, you're probably very deep into it. You may have already shot, you may have already edited, you may be ready to release, and that's when you go, oh my God,
totally,
what if nobody else feels this story?
So what was it like growing up in a commune? I mean, as far as education goes, obviously you're a very educated person, but somehow you managed to do this in this environment, at least in the film. It's just like so frustrating for this child too, because she's just constantly being moved around. People are being ripped away from her. Her own siblings are leaving. Did you have that kind of an experience, and how did you persevere?
I didn't have it as intensely as Clayne Hayward, the author of The Hypocrisy of Disco, which, by the way,
the name of the book.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful memoir. I can't recommend it highly enough. It's great. But that was her experience.
Yeah.
And she was a voracious reader, and she is highly educated. I mean, she is one of the smartest people I know. She's really incredible. Yeah. But it's very about language and communication in that way. Like, her math skills, not good.
Yeah.
And I felt similar, you know, like that's the way we were brought up. That's, you know, what people don't understand, I think, is that a lot of hippies were very educated people who just wanted to get away from the big bad city and, you know, pollution and politics, nonsense politics that, you know, right wing.
I think some of us feel like that now.
Yeah, I know. Actually, you know, I've talked to people and they're like, yeah, it actually doesn't sound too bad. You know, like what a great idea.
You can see how that movement like really caught fire, especially during the Vietnam era and all the things that were going on in the world. You know, this is not the first time we've had this kind of crazy environment and that makes you just want to leave.
Yeah, or just separate yourself and just say, like, yeah, I'll grow my own.
Or maybe connect more. Maybe it's not leaving. Maybe we feel like we have left nature and we've left our connection to animals and the environment, and maybe we want to get back connected to that.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that the way your parents were, or is that what?
Very much. Very much. And just the love and respect for the land was huge, you know. I mean, that was a huge part of it. Communal living, you know, interdependence on one another, you know, was also a big value. But there were there were all different kinds of communes, and I lived on two different communes. But then there were various communes around, and they all had kind of different ethos. Like one was just like wild and would accept anyone and was just like, let's break every rule, and you know. And then one was more like family oriented, and you know. So for me, I went to free school, like a little bit the way it is in like 1974. I mean, that is kind of like an upscale preschool, frankly.
Yeah.
And I went to the ranch school when we, you know, moved. There was just an adult who agreed to be the teacher, and you know.
And it was kids of all ages?
Kids of all ages, yep. I was 9 years old, and I was really afraid that I would never be able to assimilate into society. So I really demanded to go to public school. And so,
was that a total shocker for you when you went to public school?
It was. I mean, it was at a similar experience like going to Bennington. Like, I have to be, you know, clean and, you know, not be such a weirdo freak, you know. And so I was pretty quiet, pretty shy, and just like observing and, you know, trying not to stand out in a horrific way.
And did you stay in public school then after that for the rest of the time?
Yeah, I did actually. So then we moved to Hawaii for my my fifth grade year. Yeah, my stepdad had tuberculosis in his hip. So he had a lot of pain in his hip. So my parents thought, oh, maybe the heat will be great for his health. And so they moved there, and there were a lot of hippies that moved there, actually, you know, and even Clayne's mom moved there. You know, it was like, her story is so familiar to me. But anyway, ultimately they felt like, it wasn't really helping that much, and they moved back to Northern California. But I did spend a year there. I went to Kihei School on Maui. Wow. And yeah, that was a trip too.
That must have been. So how did you get into filmmaking? When you were at Bennington, was that like, did you study filmmaking, or what brought you to filmmaking?
One thing that my middle school did, well, it was K through 8, and they always had the 7th and 8th grade play. So that was the big deal. Yeah. And a lot of my friends were really into drama, and it kind of pulled me in. And then I got hooked. And then in high school, I was extreme drama geek, you know, like very drama all the time.
Really?
And that's what I went to Bennington to do, to study theater. And it was a great education. And we spent we spent half a year in London, just seeing play after play after play, and studying at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. And like, I mean, it was really, it was excellent. It was excellent training. So I came to filmmaking through acting. My dad, if I go back before we moved. Let's see, we moved to the land, and then my dad started building our house. Because he was not a carpenter or anything, but this is what you did. You built a house like any way you could. I mean, the wind would whistle through this house.
Wow. Yeah.
It's not an architect. But anyway, he built a house. And at the same time, he was teaching art history at Sonoma State College.
Mm-hmm.
So he would take us to Sonoma State to see movies. So I saw a lot of art films early on. And I think that really grounded my love of film. And then when I was at Bennington, I studied theater, but I also studied French lit. So I spent another half a year in Paris. And it was a very, very lonely time. But Paris is such an incredible city. And one of the things that they have is tons and tons of art house movie theaters. So I spent a lot of time in movie theaters too. Then after I graduated, I came to Seattle. And
what made you go to Seattle? Was it a relationship, or was it something about Seattle that you were like, I have to move to Seattle?
I was a little bit realizing that although I was born in New York, I wasn't really a New York person. I wasn't an East Coast person, even though a lot of my family comes from the East Coast, but I was raised on the West Coast, and that's really in me. And so I realized, like, first of all, I don't really want to stay on the East Coast. I want to go back to the West Coast. But I didn't want to go home. I didn't want to go to LA. Oregon, what's that? I don't know, and people were saying Seattle is a great theater town. So myself and two of my recent graduates, we wanted to start a theater. We wanted to start a new theater company that did new work. And, we were tired of this tired canon that is always trotted out, and we just wanted to explode and do new things. Well, the month after we moved here, and I'm still in Seattle.
Yeah.
So I moved here February of 1988. In March of 1988, I met Mike Rainey he was running the board, and I was anyway, we met at New City Theater, and he said, "Oh, what are you doing here? You just moved here." And I explained that we're here to start a new vibrant theater company, and that's our goal.
This is so interesting to me because I moved away from Seattle that same time. I went to the University of Washington. I majored in theater. I went around to all the theaters, and I was like auditioning, for the Seattle rep and all this stuff. And they were like, "You're just a kid. You look like you're 14 years old. You need to go away from here and get some experience and then come back." Right. That's what they told me. So I went to Chicago. I went to Steppenwolf in Chicago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So it's interesting. And then you showed up.
Right, and then I showed up.
Yeah.
And they had so Mike was telling me, well, that's great that you want to start a theater, but like in the meantime, we just started a theater. It sounds exactly like what you're talking about. It's called Annex Theater. Come on down and check it out.
What's it called?
Annex.
Annex, yes.
So I came from theater, essentially. Yeah. I came from theater, but with a strong love of film. Yeah. And appreciation of film as an art, because kind of came from my dad. In the 90s, I started getting really fed up with film and the depiction of women in film.
Okay.
And also just really becoming aware that, hey, where are all the female filmmakers? Mean, we're not seeing it, and I got really pissed. And I was just like, why doesn't somebody do something about this? Like, this is outrageous. It's affecting millions and millions of people, men and women. At that time, I just thought in a binary, but of course now we know differently. But then I realized, oh, stop your nonsense. Be the change. Don't just sit there and say, why doesn't somebody do this? Because they're not going to do it. And it was kind of like that Bennington experience that was very much learning by doing, like, do it. Like, the whole ethos was like, get up and do it, And then, of course, Annex Theater was exactly the same thing. Like, hey, if you want to do something, do it, So I applied to film school in 1994, and to my great surprise, I actually got in to USC Film School. But I got in a year too early because I was married, and my husband was at UW, and he still had a year, and we were pretty young. And I just thought, like, God, there's financial, like, how are we going to afford 2 student loans? And, you know, I just kind of freaked out about it. And then some personal stuff around family planning happened. Family planning.
Yeah.
But so the long and short of it is I didn't end up going to USC. And I also, you know, I called some of the recent graduates, some of the women who had graduated. And, you know, they were just like, yeah, what can I tell you? It's a boys club completely. And I was just like, well, what, you just graduated. What are you doing now? And she's like, well, I'm Bruce Willis's assistant. And I was like, after going through that film school, like, I didn't get it. So it didn't really make me want to run right down there. Of course, it's changed a lot over the years, but, you know, there have been times where I was like, wish I went, you know?
Oh, absolutely. We all look back at our lives and go, I took this road instead of that road, you know?
But at the same time, you know, I think that I think it worked out well. You know,
seem like you're in a good place. Whatever it is that has made you, that has made these films, was worth it.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. So there's my really long answer to the question about, did you go to school?
Yeah. So so did you then say, I'm going to set out to be a filmmaker, even though I'm a theater director in general? Now I want to start making films because I don't think there are enough women voices out there, which I think is an extremely valid point.
Yeah.
And also, it seems like a lot of women film directors came out of this kind of time period in Seattle that you're talking about.
Oh, that's true. That
you know
is
what I mean?
true.
And I that's one of the things that struck me as I was researching you, was I was like, wait a minute, there's Lynn Shelton and there's all these other wonderful directors that seem to have come out of Seattle. And I know for me at the time, I got out of Seattle because I didn't think that there was a place for me in the theater, and didn't seem like there was any filmmaking going on that I could be involved in. But it seems like it has been created since I've been gone. And it mostly women. You know, Carrie Brownstein, there's some really powerful women's voices coming out of this.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's great. And I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I don't live in a place that just kind of shuts women up, which that is a real thing where, you know, I mean, misogyny is so deeply embedded in almost all of us. It's terrible, but, and racism too. Like, you have to really, really, really check yourself. Because there's a lot about you that you don't know. You don't know until you're in that moment. And even then, you just think, like, I would never think that about a woman, or, you know, but it just, I found it in other people.
It's coded. It's coded in people. And, you know, I know coming to Los Angeles now, a lot has changed, and there's been a lot unearthed from what the kind of abuse that women have been going through. But also, I think, you know, everybody, men, women, everybody in culture had a kind of programming of what women could do and what they couldn't do, that we had to we're still trying to deprogram, and it's a messy experience, but we're trying to figure this thing out. But it was like hard coded into our environment and what are our expectations.
That's really, really true. And you know, I'm disappointed when I come across it, but I'm not shocked, you know, and it's just, I don't know, it's unfortunate. But for the most part, here in Seattle, there was an openness. There wasn't, you know, the door was not slammed shut.
What kind of a community did you have, a support community for your vision as a director? Because directing and filmmaking is a hugely collaborative effort. So you really need to have a great community. One of the reasons I ended up in Los Angeles, because I wanted to be around a bunch of filmmakers and a bunch of actors, because I didn't have that in Edmonds, Washington.
No.
And so how did you build that community in that place? And also, when you started at that period of time, it was a lot harder to make a film because you had to have all the camera equipment and the lighting that now is a little bit more accessible in regional areas.
Right.
So yeah, tell me about that.
Well, in 93, when I 93, 94, before I applied to film school, I was just like, let me just try this out before I really commit to this huge, expensive education. And so we shot on SVHS. Digital was just starting to come in, right? So, but then cut to 2004, I have a 7-year-old boy and a 2-year-old girl. And I'm starting to lose my mind because it's very, very, very hard to do any sort of theater or anything like that with little kids. And certainly back then, none of my other friends had children. They were like, oh, you have children. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You already have a job.
Yeah, like, oh, that's, why would you do that? But, oh, neat.
It's terrible.
I guess that's good for you. But, you know, and then they go on and make their own things and do their own things. And so there wasn't a lot of like, hey, can I help you with babysitting and stuff like that, you know? So I was kind of going stir crazy, not creating. I had really made a conscious effort not to indoctrinate my children with fairy tales. It was just a thing with me. I was just like, why are these the stories that we tell children? You know, they're kind of wacko, and they just kind of imprint this idea of women. And, you know, I was thinking a lot about that stuff. But when my mom gave my 2-year-old daughter a red coat with a hood, I totally forgot all about that. And I was like, oh my gosh, you look just like Little Red Riding Hood. And she just gave me a blank stare and what? How could you not know the story of Little Red Riding Hood? And I launched into it. I don't know where my head was. And then like I got to, grandmother, what big teeth you have. Oh no. And it just like all came running back to me. And I was like, what did I just do? And so we were talking earlier because I mentioned your background. My son and I were, at that time were in karate. We were taking karate, part of karate do and the whole experience around martial arts and all this stuff. And so my daughter had grown up in the dojo and she just would sit, you know, she would just sit and watch a 2-year-old. I couldn't believe this, but the sensei said, you know, he just said, I'll tell her to sit on the bench and she will sit on the bench. She did. So she understood this ethos. So I went, you know, in my storytelling, I just made up a different ending. And she loved it so much. And she wanted to hear it again. And I thought, oh, excellent parenting. Of course, darling, I'll tell you the story again. And so I told her again. She wanted to hear it again immediately. I mean, she was so enthralled with the story. And so I told it to her again, and then she wanted to hear it again. And I said, look, you know, take a break. And then at bedtime, she was like, can I hear that story again? She made me repeat this story over and over. And finally, in my mind, just to, you know, relieve I started to imagine what this would look like as a film inspired by Guy Madden, inspired by German expressionist film. And I started to get it shot by shot in my mind. And I was thinking, wow, you know, I'd love to go to a film festival because I was deeply into the Seattle International Film Festival. It was a fantastic
Which is a great film festival. It's very unique.
So I was just like, oh, I would just see. And then again, I realized like, look, nobody is going to make this film. So if you want to see it, you better make it. So Northwest Film Forum was a great resource for me. I found my director of photography. I said,
Is that the same one that you've been working with all this time?
No, actually,
okay.
I've done many short films, and so I've worked with about 4 different directors of photography. Been very, very lucky.
Boy, the one you have now, he's incredible.
Sebastian, you'd see, yeah, and he's so
yeah.
But this was way back. This is starting way back.
Yeah, this is way back.
This is Danielle Morgan, and she was a filmmaker in her own right. But filmmakers get exhausted. It's very hard to be the one that is there from beginning to end. And she thought, oh, this will be fun. I'll just come in and shoot it and just do this little part. Like, wow, what a concept. Had this Rush Super 8, I think it was Super 8 or 8mm. I think it was Super 8, where you wind the camera and shoot like that. It was just, it was so fun. It was just amazing. And I had such a great group of people from my theater days, who loved me and believed in me and liked my vision and agreed just to come on and help me. And so that was my first, that's what I consider my first film, is this German expressionist Little Red Riding Hood.
I think you learn a lot from making short films as a filmmaker, because it's you have to do almost all the things that you do in a feature film, except you're doing it for maybe a shorter period of time, but all the elements have to be there. So,
honestly, I don't understand filmmakers who have never made a short film who launch into a feature film.
Yeah. I don't even know how they get there. How do they even get there? How would they even know? The other thing is, so you made many short films after this. So you made that, and what happened with it? Did you put it in a festival, or did you?
Yeah. It started going to festivals, and it won at local sightings, and people were into it. So it was a really different flavor. It wasn't like at that time. What they called mumblecore, quote unquote, was starting to come out. So there were a lot of just like improvisations of 2 people on a couch talking about.
Can you explain what mumblecore is? I have an idea, but can you explain what that is?
Well, mumblecore, I mean, the people that made mumblecore films hated that.
I'm sure it's like grunge. It's like a term that the people that actually did it hate it. Yeah.
But it was marked by a lot of improvisation, super cheap, just like, we're gonna make a film.
Yeah.
So like modern settings, usually like somebody's house.
Is that like the Duplass brothers, the kind of things that they did in the beginning? Yeah.
Right. They were part of it. There were several filmmakers, Aaron Katz. There was a whole group. It was almost like a brat pack of mumblecore people. And I think Lynn was considered part of that group. Lynn,
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so.
But again, it was just people saying screw this. I'm not going to wait around for $1 million to drop in my lap. I'm going to make this film, and I'm going to make it the way I'm going to make it. And some of the films were great. Like there's a film called Quiet City that I really loved. And of course, Lynn's films, I'm her fan. So
yeah, she was great. And the things that the things that people do, it's always inspiring to me, which East of the Mountains is a little like this too, where you take a small story that can be accomplished on a pretty low budget, and it's just as compelling as anything that you see. Any huge budget movie, it draws you along, pulls you in. One of the things I wanted to mention about that particular movie and about Lane 1974 is they are very internal struggle movies, as opposed to movies that we see, where all the action is outside of the person. There's a lot internally going on with the people. Is that something that you, in your short films, that you were working with as well, internal struggles more than external?
I think so. I mean, I think that really speaks to me, and especially coming from an acting background, I know what actors can do. I know how much they can bring just themselves. They don't need a huge car crash and monsters flying, dropping, from the sky or what, you know what I mean? That's all fine. But actors are very, very powerful, and what they can bring just themselves. is a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that for myself, I spent a lot of time just kind of looking at what was going on and understanding power struggles between people, like a lot of unspoken things.
I don't even know how you do that. You know, I mean, in like now there's a lot of like CGI and there's even like deep fakes and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. And it's like, how are you going to use, there's no way that they can convey what I mean, I'm just speaking as an actor, I guess, maybe I'm advocating for us, but there is no way you can convey something like what Tom Skerritt is conveying in this movie. Because one of the things I noticed, and I heard him saying this in an interview, and I think it's true, is that he was going for like less is more, less is more.
Oh.
And so there's an inner monologue that's going on that comes out through his face and his eyes and things that is not like something that you can program. I don't think. I mean, maybe you can, maybe in the future, but I don't think you can program that unless you have created an artificial being who's having emotions internally.
Yeah, but for right now, this is a very human experience.
Also, there is a mood that you create in both of these movies, Lane 1974 and East of the Mountains. There is a mood that you create from just the cinematic landscape, and a lot of it, I think, has to do with the cinematographer that you use and just nature itself providing you this. That is, it's like intangible. Like, is there, when you make a film, do you storyboard it a lot, or do you let the environment inform you more? What is your process?
Yeah, you know, I mean, as you know, I grew up surrounded by nature.
Yeah.
And so I really began to have an understanding and like a very deep relationship with nature. And I think that is something that I draw in. Well, I certainly have for both these feature films, Lane 1974 and also East of the Mountains. Both of them, the environment plays such an enormous.
It's a character. It's a huge character.
Yeah.
That beginning of Lane 1974, where it shows the ocean and those kind of muted colors and that bus moving along the road. I mean, you all of a sudden are just drawn into it, just from the picture that you see, from and you have the feeling of it. You know, you have a mood. You already are emotionally connected to it.
Right.
And I don't know how you plan that. I don't know whether you just go out there and start.
Right. Well, with both
seeing what you have. Yeah.
You know, the star of Lane 1974 was a 12-year-old girl.
I don't know where you found her. She's fantastic.
She's incredible. She is a once-in-a-lifetime person. This is
Sophia
Mitri Schloss. Yeah. She's her own little genius. At that time, she was little, but now she's in college.
Yeah.
She's still a genius.
They grow up fast.
They do. But you know, I also had a handful of other children.
Yeah.
So who maybe didn't have as much experience as she did, or some didn't have any experience. One was a 3-year-old. So that's all to say that myself and my team had to not be rigid, you know, be open to moments and capture moments unobtrusively. Actually, Sebastian Scandiuzzi, the cinematographer for both projects, and I were just talking about this, about capturing that moment where a 7-year-old boy has a crab on his hand. And, you know, I mean, just like getting these moments without trying to make these kids feel like they have to act. Mm-hmm. And so we did storyboard certain sections on Lane. I think the bus part, we did storyboard that. But other than that, we really wanted to be free and to plan, but also to be flexible, you know? So again, with East of the Mountains, now I'm on the other side of it. I'm working with octogenarians.
Mm-hmm. You did. You went with the kids, and then you went to you went the beginning of life, and then you went to the end of life.
Right. And so Tom Skerritt is amazing. I mean, let me just
He's
say,
something. I had some time with him. I went to the film school. I don't know if you've heard of the film school.
Yeah, right.
I went for 3 weeks. Stuart Stern invited me up there to do that workshop, which was, I mean, it was like a miracle. I had met him at the Seattle International Film Festival in a coffee shop. Didn't know who he was. We started talking about cats or something. I ended up interviewing him on my show. He invited me to this thing.
Great.
So I got a chance to spend some time with Tom Skerritt because he taught the acting portion of it. And he is a very, I've worked with a lot of actors and I'm an actor myself. He is a very, more like a visceral kind of actor that he's just not in his head.
No.
Most of us actors are always struggling to get out of our head, and we have a process and all this stuff. He's somebody that kind of hit the ground running, worked with Robert Altman originally, and people that, and he just has an instinct about it and a lot of experience.
He does.
So what was that like working with him?
Well, luckily we were very much on the same page with the less is more kind of attitude, a minimalist kind of.
A lesser director might have been like trying to get more out of him than not realizing what he was giving. And I think that's probably a testament to
you can try
you.
all you want, but Tom Skerritt is going to like tell you what.
That's funny.
Another director might have been very frustrated.
Yeah, they might not have known what they were getting, though. You know what I mean? Like sometimes when you look at an actor acting, you don't trust what's going on internally.
That was not hard for me. I could definitely see what I was getting, and I knew that I mean, I was like cutting lines left, right, and center, and that's no offense to the screenwriter. Mm-hmm. He's wonderful, and I worked intensely with him. This is Thane Swaggart, and he was very well aware that we were going to have to do whatever we wanted to do, but on the set. But in the less is more vein, I just didn't want to like put a bunch of words where they.
Sometimes you can do something with a look that you don't need the line.
Exactly. It just it feels like it doubles it, and then
and then you don't need it. It's like a redundant kind of thing. There's that scene where he starts crying at the edge of the bed.
Oh, yeah.
What was that? I mean, did you plan that? Is that something that happened? What was that day like when you shot that scene? He's in the hotel room and he loses it. And like I was saying, there's a lot of internal stuff that goes on where he's remembering his past and then it affects him. Can you tell me just about that scene?
Yeah. So this was a scene where I asked Thane to bring him back to the hotel room, and I had something in mind. And I tried to describe it to Thane, and he was like, you know what? Just not really getting what you mean. So what if I said, well, there's no dialogue. So, I mean, if you want, you just put a placeholder, like he goes back to the hotel, has an experience and leaves. But in my mind, it was very, very clear. And it was funny, I took a long walk with Tom Skerritt before we started shooting, and we didn't talk very much about the character at all. Which was, I thought we were going to get on the same page, and but he just wanted to talk about his past experiences and blah blah blah, and he got very personal, and as he was talking, I could see that all this emotion was coming up as memories from experiences that he's had. And as a human being, I was there with him and open with him and supportive. But as a director, I was like, oh, this guy can bring this. He can bring this up, and he can do this, what I want to do in that hotel room. Mm-hmm. And then when I, talked about the scene with him, and I was like, does that sound okay with you? And he goes, yeah, I got it.
Really?
So, yeah. I mean, he's just a very incredible person, a very incredible actor. And I can't believe that this is his first starring role.
This is his first starring role, which is, it's unbelievable. He's won Emmys. I mean, certainly he was a main character in Picket Fences.
He's so well
Alien,
known.
all this stuff. Top Gun.
Top Gun, yeah.
Everybody knows his face.
Yeah.
Most people know his name.
A River Runs Through It.
Yeah. He's like an iconic kind of character actor, and here he is in the lead role.
Absolutely iconic.
Yeah.
And so ingrained, at least in my psyche and my mind,
Yeah.
But and then you're like, is that really true? He's never. And then you go back through his long, and you're like, wow, it is really true. And he is in almost every frame of this film.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's great that you've got him. I mean, you were brought onto this, and he was already on the project. Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah,
And
that's
David
great
Gooderson
that you brought this.
David Gooderson wrote the novel, East of the Mountains, and he was really made a huge splash with his first novel, Snow Falling on Cedars.
Yeah, which is another film that has a certain Northwest kind of mood to it that is so strong. And that's one thing about the Pacific Northwest that I find is that that the environment has an influence on a film that is shot there.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? If you let it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you let it.
If you let it. I mean, you cannot let it too.
That's true.
But you do. You allow that to permeate. And there's a whole thing about also Eastern Washington being a character in this thing. And growing up in Seattle, you have a certain idea of Eastern Washington, and you go over there every once in a while. But it's like a different world from Seattle.
It is a really different world. It's kind of amazing what a different world it is. And until my son went to college at Wazoo, Washington State University over there in Pullman, I didn't know too much about it, Yeah. And once he went to school there, I started going into Eastern Washington a lot more and looking around, and like the Palouse is just extraordinary. It's just so beautiful. And we had a lot of fun with Dave Drummond, who was the locations manager. Sebastian, the DP, just a handful of us, Aaron OK, the production designer, and I would just go on these location scouts and just have our minds blown, of just like, wow.
Well, Washington State is like one of the only states, if not the only state, that has all types of terrain, from rainforest to ocean to I don't know what they all are. High plains, desert, I don't know,
desert,
everything.
Absolutely. Lush.
So it's like a great place to film if you can, get out of the
fantastic.
rain.
I'm actually really inspired to really get into all the different terrains of Washington State.
Like the rainforest, like on the Olympic Peninsula there's some, it seems like you could make a great movie out there. I want to ask you before we're going to have to end this pretty soon, unfortunately, but Annie Gonzalez, you found her, she's an actress in the movie. You found her on Instagram is what I understand.
That's right.
You found an actor on Instagram. So like, that's how some people are getting parts now. What happened?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I had a very specific idea for this character.
Yeah.
In the book, she's not written like this at all, but this is the way I wanted to tell her story. This is who I wanted her to be, was very, very specific. Yeah. And so I was interested in one actor. We couldn't find her for some reason. And then, so I started looking at other shows that had Mexican American actors, and I started honing in on this one person. So I went to their Instagram page and we reached out to them. And
this is her first major film, right?
This is her, yes. Yeah, but she's done TV.
Yeah.
She's done TV. So this was somebody else. And I went to their Instagram page. They were busy. And then I just started kind of reading down their feed.
Yeah.
And there was this thing of like, oh, I love being in this with you. You're so awesome. Like super positive interaction. Like, you're the most amazing actor. I feel so lucky.
Like, who is this person?
And I was like, you know, yes. Who? So then I went to her Instagram page and it was just very joyous, positive, hardworking actor, which means a lot to me because I come from an acting background. So I don't want divas on my set. I don't like that. I want somebody who's going to be,
especially this one is going to be out in the woods and, out in a rural kind of area.
And she was all that and more. I mean, I love Annie Gonzalez so much, and she's blowing up now. She's working all the time. So
That's great. How important is community to you? Okay, so that
Huge.
kind of came out. You saw someone else's community in that. You were like, oh, let me look in their community. How important? Yeah. What is it? And how do you create community in Seattle, which is not generally a filmmaking town?
Community is everything. It's everything to me. You know, I grew up communally, so I already understand it. But with Annex Theater, that was a community. You know, even with Bennington College, that's its own community now. You know what I mean? Yeah. Community is and this is one of the kind of thesis I thought about for East of the Mountains, where Americans are really kind of indoctrinated into this idea, and particularly I have to say men, but also women, but this idea of the rugged individualist. Like I must
Ayn Rand
own
philosophy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it started there. I mean, I think it really kind of, I don't know, but that's one of the things that kind of gave it a boost somewhere along the way.
Yeah, well, like that cowboy on the Lonesome Range and this, and like you just, don't rely on other people, which is such a fallacy. It's like we need each other. We really need each other. And I think this idea of rugged individualism hurts a lot more than it helps. And certainly you see that in Tom Skerritt's character, Ben Gibbons. At the beginning, he feels that he has to control everything, including his own death.
He doesn't want to be dependent on anybody either.
Nope. He doesn't want to ask for anything. And he's even shutting out his own daughter,
And his brother and his father and like all kinds of things along the way.
Yeah, right. And hopefully by the end, you get the feeling that maybe something has changed in him.
Yeah, and that seems to really work. I'm going to have to end this interview, unfortunately, because
sorry, I feel like I went way too much.
I think it's great. This is exactly what we want to hear. This is exactly what we want to hear. And also, I'm responsible because I was jumping around a lot, but I wanted to hear different aspects of you and how you deal with things in life, because that's one of the things we're interested in on the show is like, how do you, as an artist or anybody, how do you keep your mind right when the world is like doing all these unexpected things? And do you think martial arts is something that helped you along the way, keep your head right?
Absolutely.
All of this?
Absolutely, 100%, 100%. Because, when I hate to like
do it.
Say filmmaking is a battle, but sometimes it feels like a battle. And what my sensei always said was, you don't start crying in the middle of a fight. You cannot. That's not the time to cry.
Right.
Don't cry. You get punched, you keep going.
Yeah. And I always say the recovery is everything. You know what I mean? Like in the theater, we know this because you have to recover because the show can't stop if something goes wrong.
The show must go on.
Sometimes even the lights go out. I've been on a play when the lights went out.
Yep.
And you wait, and then when the lights come back on, you're into your next beat. And often that's the most interesting part.
Yeah, exactly. Like how you deal with struggles, how you deal with things that, that it shows your character. And that shows, and that, a lot of films never make it because they get halfway in, they reach a stumbling block and they can't recover. And it's tough, but yeah, you need to.
And it happens to even, some of the great filmmakers. Terry Gilliam, had that film. There's a whole documentary film about him making, making that movie that I think he finally made, but it was like, he had to, and it actually failed the first time, had to just completely wrap the whole thing because it was like one thing after another, lead getting injured, getting ill and the environment taking them down and all that stuff. So yeah, it is. And it feels like a battle, and it feels like a battle because you have an army and you as the director are the leader. And everybody comes to you.
The general,
I don't think it's such a bad metaphor,
But you can't really sit down and cry in the middle of a fight.
Do you know what the next thing you're going to do?
Counter.
You have to just go.
You have to go. Yeah, keep going.
Do you know what the next thing you're going to be doing is?
I'm working on 4 different feature films.
Feature films.
And also this huge idea for a series. But that's, you know, I was listening to Michaela Cole, and she did I May Destroy You. I don't know if you know.
I don't know that.
She's my idol. I love her so much. But anyway, her advice was do the thing that scares you.
Yeah.
And so, this is a pretty scary series, and so I'm it's also very, very exciting. It goes way back in my family, and it has to do with capitalism and socialism, money, and all this stuff. So
wow, it sounds great. I imagine you're probably going to get some heat from this movie too, like if you haven't already. I imagine
so.
I see you.
I hope so. I want to work,
directing
man. I'm
all
like
kinds of
everybody else.
stuff. Yeah,
I just want to work.
that's right. I want to work with you. I just put that out there. Someday
Oh,
I'd like to
great.
be involved in whatever you're doing.
Wonderful. Thank you. What a compliment.
Because I'm very impressed with what you're doing. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
And
It's
you're
been a lot of fun.
welcome here anytime.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing the next chapter and what you're doing.
Yeah, well, I hope people will watch East of the Mountains.
If anybody hasn't seen East of the Mountains, go out there and watch it. It was simultaneously released, right? I mean, it was released online,
right.
so you
They
can go
indeed.
see it. You can. I watched it on Amazon. You can rent it. You can
good.
buy it.
Yep.
Please do.
Yeah.
You won't be disappointed. And check out Lane 1974 also, which is that is an intense film. I'm still a little bit upset about the way that child had to live. That last moment where she looks up, I mean, I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but it's like, oh, she's still in it.
Exactly. That is exactly it. It's so funny. That's like a little bit of a Rorschach test. Like, what do you think that ending means?
Yeah. The moments are, those kind of moments are so important. Somebody was just saying this the other day about self-tapes.
Oh, yeah.
And at the end of your self-tape, you better have like a moment. Don't just turn off at after the last line or whatever, because that might be the thing that actually sells you.
Yeah,
be like,
that's good advice.
Yeah.
Very good advice.
All right, there we go. I threw out some advice. I heard it from someplace else, but anyway, it's very pertinent. All right, thank you so much, and we'll see you
thank
soon.
you.
Very
This is
gracious of you.
wonderful.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
All right, that's the conversation with S.J. Chiro. Thanks everybody for joining in. It's very inspirational to see these people and see what they're doing and talk to these people. I find it that way, and I hope you do too. We're going to move on to the dance break because we're out of time. I've got one of my favorites, Dan Dubuque, one of my favorites. And he's going to be playing a little Rage Against the Machine, so let's get into it. This has been Lunch Therapy Interview Friday. Dance them if you got. This guy's great. He's in Montana. Many of you have seen him before. He's a Lunch Therapy favorite. His Venmo is on the screen if you want to send him some bucks. Thanks for being here, Howard. Yeah, S.J. Chiro. I was lucky enough to find her. I saw an interview with her and contacted her, and so thank you so much for being on the show. Let's bring out some dance partners here. Happy weekend, Todd Lee. Thanks for your insightful comments. Yeah, this guy's amazing. He's killing it. Next Saturday night, it's my birthday. We're going to have the Evil Opposite show. We're going to have some fun. So if anybody wants to have some shadow lunch therapy show for Halloween, 9 p.m. Pacific time, midnight Eastern time, October 23rd. Yes, Dan Dubuque Music Fund. Send him some cash, Venmo style. Oh, I promise I'd do this. There's not really a bass in this, but Midnight Madness. Rocktober 23rd. I don't know what that means, but all right. Oh, yeah. Todd Lee's going to dress up like a Squid Game for the 23rd, from what I understand. You can wear costumes. Come on the show, tell a spooky story. It's going to be good. All right, this has been Lunch Therapy Interview Friday. We'll see you all soon. Have a great weekend.